Ole, 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 ole. Ole, ole. Ole, 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 ole. Ole, ole.
Hello and welcome to Homegrown, the Soccer Yanks home for domestic soccer. I am your host, Dan DeRocha, and tonight we're going to be bringing you our August 2015 edition of Homegrown. My co-host and the mind behind Homegrown, Jason Sierra.
What's up, Dan? How you doing?
I am excellent.
It's we gotta do more of these. It feels too long.
What 1 month, and sometimes it's maybe like 5 weeks. You know,
Yeah, I think it's 5 weeks this time.
It is. It seems like each time it's like we're rekindling a friendship. It would be great to maybe truncate the time, maybe semi-monthly, if we could make that happen with our personal lives.
Yeah, that's wishful thinking at this point.
I know. But Major League Soccer shrugged, just making it through the dog days of summer now. We're about halfway through the season. In the beginning of the year, like a lot of pundits and talking heads, we made some predictions. We've been kind of sitting on them, and we wanted to talk about them. We wanted to find the right time. Last month was a little too early. Now maybe we passed the right time, but we got to get it in before we're talking playoffs. So I want to talk about some of the bold statements we made just before the Major League Soccer season kicked off. It was documented in an article written on Soccer Yanks by Daniel Holt. Do you have something that you want to share that's surprisingly wrong?
Breakout Player of the Year. That was a one where a kind of a established Major League Soccer player take that next step. Maybe get into the MVP conversation, All-Star game, whatever you perceive to be the next level up. My pick, based mostly on the Champions League performance early on before the season started, and some roster moves, was I predicted Deli Duca would be the breakout player of the year, and he's been nice for Montreal, but nowhere near all-star quality.
What does he have, a goal to his name?
1 goal, I believe, 2 assists in 13 games, or 13. I think he has as many goals and assists in CONCACAF Champions League as he had in the entire season of MLS.
Not necessarily breakout material.
There's a lot of elements to it, but no, that's a dud of a pick.
Since we're going duds first, I'll give you my dud. This one is just reeks of biased favoritism on my part. Rookie of the Year, Leo Stolz. Not even a chance. Not gonna happen.
He hasn't played yet. I don't even think he's officially dressed for the MLS.
I don't think
he's.
Team. Yeah, I don't think he has. I can't. Maybe we'll be shocked, and he dressed once, but I don't think. I mean, he hasn't done much even for the B. So. Yeah. Okay. There's a lot of hype. I watched that college final.
Yeah. Well, my pick wasn't much better either. I mean, I picked Nacho Negrante for LA because I wanted to be the smart college soccer guy, so I went with the far outside the box pick. But he's getting playing time at least. He's contributing. But it's Kyle Larin, who Kyle picked and Daniel picked as the best. He's going to be the Rookie of the Year. He's walking away with it. He's having a phenomenal season. I thought he was going to be. I thought he was going to be a little bit of I don't want to say a wash, but like another year or two to develop. But he holds his own. He plays really well. I hope people just don't remember him for the miss in the Gold Cup. That would be a sorry remembrance for him having a phenomenal season.
I had a lot of picks that are just not necessarily very good and not necessarily very bad. Just kind of missed the mark. But as far as what I might have picked, that is probably my best pick so far, and again we're kind of recapping midway through the a little bit past midway through the year, so things could still change. But this is kind of like a double whammy. I picked Orlando City to be both a surprisingly good team and also the better expansion team, which I think they're on the way of being the better expansion team. And if they make the playoffs, I think that's a big sign for an expansion club. So I think that counts as surprisingly good.
Yeah, I think Orlando City is. I think the one thing about Orlando City is you can look at them and you can see if they don't make the playoffs this year, they'll probably make it next year. They're a team that's clearly has a plan, clearly on the rise. They have young players. They drafted phenomenally, and I'm not just mean with the guys they selected, but the way they selected, they got all Generation Adidas guys, so they saved themselves a ton of cap space because Generation Adidas players are not hits against the cap. They're going to have homegrown guys because they do have players who were in their, I guess, reserve team and youth system there, so they make the playoffs. I don't think it's a huge disappointment for that team. I think everyone sees the upward trajectory of that side.
I mean, I would almost say that if they had a less leaky defense, we would be talking a even stronger game about them because it's really midfield and up is doing a good enough job. It's that defense that's been very, very leaky and very questionable at times. It's really letting the rest of the team down, to be honest.
Well, that's most of the teams in MLS. It's funny. Beginning of the year, I remember the first homegrown of the season was just the crap players around the league that were bringing in, starting for these teams, and mostly it was due because of the lack of offensive efficiencies, the lack of scoring throughout the first 2 months of the year almost, and now we've gone the reverse. And coaches are figuring where to put players are, how to get their players in best positions, their best attacking lineups, and we're seeing phenomenally high scoring games, and we're not seeing as much defense, but crap defense is everywhere. We're becoming the Eredivisie of the Americas.
I mean, why isn't Josie scoring more goals then?
Well, hamstring injuries.
I know.
What other excuses can I make for him at this point?
Okay, Jay, what did you nail? What did you get? Because I know you got one. I know one that I see and I'm like, damn, Jay nailed it.
Would it be Vancouver one?
Yeah, I think so. That's the one.
Yeah. We were talking about this in a prep. I just love the way they play. They are. I jokingly said it. I didn't mean it in a sense like you took it, but I'll say it. When I watch them play, tactically, strategically, they remind me so much of Real Madrid, where they're counterattacking, they're fast, they're athletic. I mean, obviously, you don't have the quality players, especially on the wing, but just the way they spring forward and blow up teams who try to press them and put them in their half the field. It's just they're fun to watch. They're exciting. They can come down and score anytime they come down the field. If they had better wingers, I think that's the one thing they're lacking.
You got it. I mean, I think they're going to probably end up winning the West, and let's see what kind of run they could do here. I mean, there's still plenty of soccer to be played, so things have changed. Things do change, but I don't see many. I don't see them having many obstacles between now and playoff time. So moving on, another big event that happens mid-season or thereabouts is the close of the MLS transfer window. This transfer window brought in, a couple more names. There was some movement within the league. Anything that really, what is the biggest takeaway from this window, do you think?
Well, the two things that stand out for me is DC being DC, getting a veteran from a team who wants to go flashy and big. They got Sabarillo from RSL. They're already a good team. One thing they lack was scoring prowess, and they just know how to get these guys. But the biggest thing for me is guys not moving out of MLS into better leagues. There wasn't anybody I can think of, American or otherwise, who left MLS for greener pastures. And I mean, you want to count Yedlin, sure, but that was last season. I mean, this season, who left?
I see some names on here. Let's see if they ring a bell. Let's see here. Eric Hurtado on loan to a team in Denmark that I don't know how do you pronounce this one letter.
Okay.
Exactly. Shane O'Neill went to Apollon Limassol. Don't even know where the country that is, to be honest with you.
Well, Shane O'Neill was kind of out of the mix for Colorado. He lost his job to Burley, who was the center back from Chivas. He lost it to Rosberg, who's a rookie center back from Marquette. And then you have him, who you thought was going to be the future of the U.S. men's national team. He's not even in the mix, and now he's not even in his first team. That's not exciting to me. That's not promising to me. I hope he gets minutes. I hope he turns his career around, but he was on the wrong trajectory.
Yeah, well, and now he's playing in this. I looked it up, the Cypriot First Division. So that's I would imagine. For me, that's a step down for sure. I mean, I'm sure there's a Euro snob out there that says, at least it's Europe. That is it. Those are the only two. Only two Americans. That's actually the only two players I think in MLS that left the league to go abroad. Some people were loaned to, some of the younger guys were loaned down into USL or MPSL teams. But I'm looking at the list here, and that's it. Those are the only two names that I see going abroad. So now the real question is this a good sign or a bad sign?
Well, it's a good sign that we get to watch higher quality soccer towards the end of the season. But I think, are we talking about American development? Are we talking about league development? Are we talking about player development? Because I look at this and I think right off the bat, I think about the New York Cosmos, who just signed their second U17 national team player, who got Haji right through part of the Galaxy U system. And these players went there instead of going to college, instead of going to MLS, because they wanted to bypass the MLS system of being sold. These guys are people who have opportunities to go to Europe, who are on the radar for a lot of teams, being part of the youth setup for America, and they're not going to have the middleman of the league to deal with.
It is very the answer of that question is really, it's contextual. It's relative to where your position is. For your point of view, that point that you brought up is very interesting. There's maybe perhaps teams that are interested in our players, but after initial contact with MLS and having to see what that circus is like, they go, he's not worth it. It's no thank you. So there could be that as well. The glass half full is going to say that our league is staying strong. We're paying our players and they don't want to leave, and they're staying here. I am not sure if that's smoke being blown up our rear ends, or if there's maybe some validity to that. But this question really can be answered multiple ways based on where you're standing in the soccer lexicon. So it's very interesting. It's a very interesting state that we find ourselves in here. I think the bigger Major League Soccer gets, it's inevitable that they're going to have to change the way that things are negotiated, because it's going to eventually will stifle the league.
Well, why is Bill Hamid still in DC United? There was rumors from Matt Miazga. Obviously, Kamal Lawrence has been in Red Bulls for less than a year. He had a phenomenal Copa America, good Gold Cup. He's primed for moving. If he doesn't leave Red Bulls this year, you got to question what's going on with the league transfer policies. Kyle Aaron is another guy who promising, could be the kind of guy that goes to the Eredivisie as a young forward. There's a handful of these guys out there. Zach Pfeffer might be another guy who could probably go to a lower division team out of Philly. Callan Rowe, Diego Fagundes. Why are these guys going overseas? Why are these guys moving? Why is Eric Palmer Brown, who was offered $1 million to go to Juventus? He's 18 years old now. Why is he still here? You want people to talk about Pro Bowl, you want people to talk about single entity system, and you want people to really stand up and get annoyed about this stuff. These guys still being here, that hurts CONCACAF, because Kyle Aaron is Canadian, that hurts CONCACAF development. There's no reason for these guys to still be here.
Just to play devil's advocate, Jay, maybe these guys suck.
I think a handful of guys on that I just mentioned, who Eric Palmer Brown got an offer. I don't think Kamal Lawrence sucks. I think I know. Getting first team for the group stages, that's a pretty good sign that you're quality. Matt Miazga just might be a money thing with Red Bulls, and he's still a young guy living with his parents. Same thing with Pfeffer; he's still living in his home base. But these are we're not moving anybody out. There's no one we're excited about.
That's true.
I mean, the biggest move this offseason has been Tim Reams, possibly going to QPR, who is still in the Champions League championship, but they are, probably touted to go back up into promotion next year.
A storied club, long history, a lot of Premier League years, or rather First Division years. Okay, let's switching gears just a bit. Of the new boys, from this window, anything that strikes you? Just to name a few here, we have Sean Wright-Phillips, Giovanni Dos Santos, Drogba. There's a couple of other folks. David Matos to Orlando City. The rest are kind of stretching a little bit here.
Well, RSL just made a pickup, and again, it's to most people. I mean, this guy who is Argentinian Player of the Year in 2010. He's 29 years old. Juan Miguel Martinez, Boca Juniors player. We don't know him here. We don't pay attention to Argentina soccer. I mean, I'm sure people who do would know him, but it just seems one of these names. I like to say when I send out a tweet, a couple of people when I heard about the Red Bulls picking up a player from, if I'm not mistaken, it was a River Plate, nameless face Argentinian midfielder. This is kind of how we are doing it. We're doing it on the cheap here now. We're doing it on the cheap, or we're doing it on the old. There doesn't seem to be anything else in between. I don't know. I guess maybe it just feels kind of stale. Honestly, I think maybe we've seen both retirement players coming in, nameless, faceless Argentinian player coming in. I mean, Dos Santos is great. Javinko is great. I like to see more of those, but everything else seems kind of stale.
Yep. You were referring to Gonzalo Varane for the Red Bulls.
Yes.
He played for he played for San Lorenzo, the Pope's team.
Oh yes, I'm sorry, San Lorenzo. Yeah, he winger who might play creative midfielder. Allegedly quite a fast player despite having 2 surgeries.
I saw him for a few minutes last week against New York City FC. He looks like a big guy. He's a pretty his stature. He's kind of like a. Surprisingly, I thought he'd be like kind of like small and wiry, but he's had like a pretty big body to him. I'm interested to see him get out there a little bit more.
I'm not saying it's bad. I'm not saying they're going to hurt the players. These are bad players. I'm just saying this feels like these are the pipelines that we have, and is this really the way we are growing the league after repeating the same process after 5 years? I mean, Portland has done it, and Portland's kind of overdone it to a point, right? They're bringing in an Argentinian guy every year, or Uruguayan every year, and what are they producing out of it right now?
They're struggling in the mid-table somewhere.
Right. So Red Bulls doing is one thing, is a new for them. RSL doing it, they've had success. Javi Morales and Joel Plata. I mean, there might be something new for them, but I think we're just kind of getting to a point where we're seeing the same thing over again.
All right, I'm not even going to answer this, but I want to throw it out to you, because it's easy to complain and it's easy to throw mud on mud around. What do you think is the solution here? What would you do if you had the power? And let's be reasonable. Let's stay within. Let's not go crazy, but let's stay within the confines that we know that exist. What would you do to solve this? What would you do to stimulate this? To stimulate the transfers?
Hey, Homegrown listeners. I was doing some editing on the podcast, and I realized that the rant I'm about to go on might be a little confusing. So, because Giovanni Dos Santos has been in the league so long, and I'm just not used to, I guess, putting the names together and separating things, I was referring to the best player in the league as being Gio. Gio meaning Sebastian Javinko. So when I refer to Gio in this next round as being the best player in the league, it is Sebastian Javinko, not Giovanni Dos Santos. So hopefully that clears it up. We'll go back to my rant. I think it's an issue with willingness to buy players. Why couldn't MLS be in the mix? I say we as American soccer watchers, viewers, not we as MLS. But why can MLS be in the mix with Shaqiri? Really? I mean, Swansea? I mean,
it was Stoke.
I'm sorry, even worse. You know what? Thank God no American player went to Stoke. The graveyards of Americans. Stoke. He should have came to MLS instead. Really, in the mix for him. That's the player that's perfect. That's the player that you would want to bring into the league. That you should, like I said last time with the Santos, move heaven and earth to get. Because they're young, they're exciting. The Santos had a fabulous debut. Gio is MVP at this point. So, even Villa, who's 32, if it wasn't for Gio, he'd be a possible MVP candidate. That was a better team. So let's get these big name players who are in their prime, who's not getting the playing time on these big teams, and let's be a part of that. Let's be in that mix.
I agree. Okay. The internet, or at least the soccer portion of the internet, the American soccer portion of the internet, I just keep qualifying this question a little bit more and more and more. It kind of imploded on itself the other day when NASL Commissioner Bill Peterson made I guess he was maybe doing a wish list, but he made it pretty evident that if things remain as they're going and he stays in power and he stays in control, he wants NASL to move into a pro-rel environment, and he is suggesting that it will require, or not necessarily require, but it would be the best route would be to include the existing leagues below, NPSL, namely MPSL, and he thinks it's without a doubt a must for American soccer. The internet, of course, broke a little bit because people freak out every time Pro-Rel is mentioned by anyone that has some sort of soccer authority. Whenever Pro-Rel is mentioned, people wig out. I mean, I think a lot of this is a little bit of a little early, a little premature. They don't even have 20 teams in NASL. They might lose the second division status because they don't have enough West Coast teams. I mean, Jay, what's your initial take on Bill Peterson and this pro-rel talk?
I look at this and I look at the source being the Telegram, and it's not specifically the Telegram that's the issue. It's essentially him talking up his league to a foreign publication who is not as familiar, even though his author might be familiar, who is not as familiar with the soccer landscape. If you presented this to somebody in a newspaper, Stephen Goff, Brian Lewis, you bring these to these guys, there'll be questions, there'll be pushbacks, there'll be issues about what about traffic, there'll be issues about what about West Coast expansion, what about your own stadiums, what about the fact that you lose teams and gain teams every year, that you're not stable. Do I want to see this? Yes. I hope this works out. I hope this is brilliant and great and that they are able to accomplish this. But if you're like almost having this as a carrot for people to follow your league and to be engaged in your league, that we're going to have Pro-Rel and we're going to take the NPSL with us, who has a handful of interesting teams, one of which is Chattanooga, the other one being the Jesters. There's a handful of interesting teams out there who will be interesting and really exciting to have in the American professional soccer landscape. But this almost seems like a carrot being dangled out to people who on our side of the pond, and a little bit of bluster on the other side of the pond.
I mean, the one thing that stood out to me was, in all this talk of Pro-Rel and NPSL, and even NASL, what happens when you have Pro-Rel and you have a team from Puerto Rico, you have teams from Canada? Where do those teams get relegated to? I believe, if my memory serves me correct, I believe there was already a lot of hoopla and a lot of to-do with the Canadian Soccer Association just to get the Whitecaps, the Impact sanctioned for MLS. I'm not sure the Canadians, want to have their second tier teams also be part of the American system. And I think I read somewhere that there is a Canadian professional league forming as well. And I'm not sure if that's a competitor to NASL or where that even falls in I mean, he's talking about North American soccer pyramid, where pretty much everywhere else. I mean, I'm saying this is a blanket statement. I have not researched, so don't hold it against me. But I'm pretty sure in every other country, it's one individual country's pyramid. So this is already a plethora of issues upon issues upon issues. I can't disagree with you on the carrot. This seems exactly like Miami FC. We'll get a team in there before you. See, we took the spotlight off of you. It just seems marketing to a certain extent.
Right, and if we understand the Canadian League, it was kind of part of the agreement with the Women's World Cup that they would explore a Canadian League for men and possibly for women. But if that's the case, it might be, how much is this a strategic, knowing that, well, they might lose two teams in the future because of this Canadian League, and those two teams, making them essentially, only America, and they kind of have to do something for it. I think there's a likelihood of a Canadian League being put together than this idea going forward. I think that in the next 5 years, there'll be a Canadian League, what you call a second tier, what you call a first, whatever you want to call it, before this is implemented. And we're also forgetting about the NPSL aspect of this, which is this is semi-pro. The bulk of their talent is coming from amateur players who play college soccer. The MLS left them. The Red Bulls and the DC United was a youth team who made up solely of amateur players. So now we're saying these players are playing a NASL-like schedule, so they're not going to be college players. How much professional talent do we actually have in this country? Do you have professional players who are not college players, playing in the summer, who are not, really good and really good, teachers or really good students who might be graduate assistants who are coaching on the side as well? How much talent do we actually have in this country to have another 40 professional teams?
I think couple that problem, the watered down problem, with the fact that you already have a problem. NASL currently right now has a travel problem. How are you going to address that? How are you going to address that with a second with NPSL? It's just a talking head at this point, just spewing off, ideas with no real support, no real thought, no real care to understand. I mean, I think somebody had reached out to the actual NASL office, or maybe it was the NPSL office, and asked for comment about, like, what is the plan, and they were like, nothing has been discussed internally. Like, meaning this is just Bill Peterson's pipe dream. This is not a legitimate plan that we have in place. This is just he's spitballing for the journalist.
MLS doesn't even have charter jets for every single traveling game. You can only I believe it's right now there's enough in the budget for I think three. That was last contract was 3 or 4 games a year you can charter a jet for. Maybe the new CBA might have changed that. But MLS teams don't even charter their own jets.
Well, I met the Philadelphia Union in San Francisco airport 2 years ago, so they were all sitting in a bar, not a bar, I don't know if it was a bar, but they're having breakfast at one establishment in the airport, and I'm just like, this is how they travel, huh? Yeah, that's right. They don't it's not the NBA, it's not Major League Baseball, it's not NFL. Sometimes they got to travel like the commoners.
But that's the reality, though. It's that they're traveling cross country. This isn't England. This isn't Ireland. This isn't Spain, where you have a rail system where you can put people on, or you can charter a 2-hour flight. I mean, you're going to have to travel from Ottawa to Miami. Let's not even think about West Coast. Or you're going to have to travel from Chattanooga, with not really a major airport, to whatever the West Coast city is going to be, or you're gonna have to travel from Oklahoma City. Well, Oklahoma City is a bigger area.
Well, I think Oklahoma is. I think they backed out of Oklahoma.
Oh, they're back to Oklahoma. Okay.
Yep.
Well, pick some of these places where there's teams they don't have major airports to travel out of and get to. So they're gonna have many connecting flights. How you might be on flights for 12 hours if you're a team. I mean, realistically, think about that. You might be on a flight if you're Chattanooga, and you have to go to, and you have to have a cheap flight and get yourself to Ontario or Ottawa. You have to go what? You got to go to Detroit first, and then you have to go in, or you have to go
Likely
to
Chicago,
New York,
Chicago or New York.
Right. I mean, that's how many
Toronto,
more hours?
maybe, or Toronto, maybe. But
Right.
yes, there's likely going to be no direct flight from Chattanooga or thereabouts to Ottawa.
Right.
There will probably not be a direct flight. No.
Yeah. And you know what? A guy in England probably is not going to think about that. I mean, I'm sure right now, when I just said that, there's probably a lot of people shaking their head like, yeah, I never thought about that.
All our English fans.
We have a couple Australian ones, too.
I'll take them. I'll take everybody. Everyone. This is an all-inclusive podcast. Everyone's in. Okay. And to wrap up our show, we have our customary 3 questions. This week, they will be named in honor of the highest scoring player in modern U.S. Open Cup history, Sebastian Letou, getting the Philadelphia Union back into the U.S. Open Cup final. The guy's been a little bit of a journeyman. Tip our hat to him. He's in the record books. Okay, to get it going. This podcast, the theme of this podcast, we kind of caught up on a few things at mid-year kind of events. Kind of look back at the season, kind of where we're at right now. There is a topic that we haven't really touched on that happened since our last podcast, and it's actually a topic we haven't discussed since, I believe, and I think Jay Colt told me that we haven't talked about it since the very first Homegrown. And so here it is. The All-Star Game, which wrapped up a few weeks back. The current format is the MLS All-Stars playing a foreign club that comes in and they have some sort of an exhibition match. So it's MLS talent versus foreign talent. This has been a heavily debated format. Jay, does this format need to stay, or should we change to something that's more inclusive of MLS talent?
I mean, the holy grail is MLS versus Liga MS. Until we get that, I'm kind of at a point where I think we just let it go. I think we shouldn't touch it. We get competitive games. Yes, it's against teams who are not their fittest at all the time. It's against teams who might not be playing their best 11 at all times. But I feel like there's at least some kind of a fire and passion in these games when these MLS players go out there and play these foreign opponents.
Can I ask you a follow-up question? Because just to clarify, when you mean MLS versus Liga MX, do you mean that you want Liga MX to also create an all-star team?
Yes.
Okay, that's an interesting concept. I can be on board with that concept. However, until we get that concept, I don't like the current format. I think, for one, we have the chance, if we do an East-West game, or even if we don't do an East-West game, let's say we pick Landon Donovan and, I don't know, Eric Winalda or not Eric Winalda, but somebody else to be coaches and kind of do like the NFL style and have them pick 2 teams. And at least then we're going to get to see 35 to 40 players in Major League Soccer. You might get a chance to see. There might be a person that only watches their local club, right? They only watch San Jose, or maybe one other, like the match of the week, and they don't know that there's this guy. Oh, there's somebody that's pretty interesting on Columbus. It's supposed to be showcasing the talent of the league. I think we're truncating it, only showing 22 players or 25 players or whatever the roster is. And for a lot of the reasons that you stated, that they're playing a team that looks at it a little bit as a joke. Bayern Munich the year before, Pep Guardiola was really kind of disappointed with the level of play for Major League Soccer. meaning he thought, hey, this is kind of like a charity event. This is a little money grab. Why are you guys trying to kill us? And I would actually prefer Major League Soccer to play East-West, because then maybe it will be a little bit more of a NBA-style All-Star game where it is more of having a little bit of fun. We get to see the players out there playing, doing some tricks, enjoying themselves. There is like a chip on their shoulder kind of thing. And who needs your best players to be playing with the chip on their shoulder when there's still half of the league campaign to go? So to me, there's too many things wrong with it for me to want it to stay, in my eyes.
I don't know. It feels like we're going to be... I don't want to say scraping the bottom of the barrel, because that seems like it's a hush term, because there's a lot of good players out there who are not going to make all-star teams. But do you really want to see better-than-average players play against other better-than-average players? I mean, yeah, sure, we can go with the captains and make it a little interesting, but then we're still kind of... at some point, we're still kind of getting guys who just are basically starters. To me, maybe a format might be the world versus America, or DPs versus everyone else. I don't know. I like to see some of those guys like Chris Walsh, who had a couple of nasty things to say about NYCFC, take a little personal against DPs who are overpriced and overpaid. Would you want to see someone a little?
Okay, that's interesting. That's an interesting format.
Dax is not a DP. See Dax beat up on Pirlo again, or some of these guys had a little bit of a hard edge on a chip on his shoulder. Maybe it's Alan Gordon, throw a couple of elbows.
It would be kind of interesting if maybe Major League Soccer teamed up with like one of the charities, and they put MLS All-Stars versus one of like how they have the charity events like Leo Messi and Friends, where they and because they do it for charity, right? They don't do it so much for the league. Maybe we could get a All-Star team, a World All-Star team versus Major League Soccer All-Stars. And that would be an event. That would be a spectacle that's wow, that's pretty interesting to watch. I like your ideas, but I think what you're really telling me is that you kind of agree that the format is not that great, and we could probably try to do something different. That's really what you're kind of telling me.
No. What I'm telling you is I want something to play for, and non-DP guys with a chip on the shoulder play against DP guys who, whether you feel like they are worth it or not, is it's a little more interesting than just trying to think of who would be the lower level DPs. We get to watch Dylan Serna versus Sebastian Letou, and then we'll watch I don't even know Beltrain. Let's see. Let's throw some other names out there who are good players, but we really wouldn't pay to watch them. I mean, would you pay to watch a lot of these guys?
Yes. No.
Yeah.
No. Okay, you got it. All right, that's it. You point J. All right, next question. Let's move on. You got me. You stumped me. I agree. Okay, here, next question. This is a good one. This is a really good one. Right now, we're facing two national championships. The U.S. Open Cup in Philadelphia will be played soon, and it'll be Philadelphia Union versus Kansas City. Excuse me. North of the border, in Montreal, we have Montreal playing Vancouver in the second leg of the Canadian Championship. That second tie, they're tied 2-2 right now. If you only had the ability to see one, which one would it be?
You can answer first, since I think I started off last one.
I left my heart in Montreal. I think for one, I think the Canadian rivalry is because I think there's less teams, there's more animosity between the teams. For one, I think it's in Montreal. Montreal's an awesome town just for the weekend. And Vancouver is playing amazing soccer. I think it has all the elements for an exciting match.
Yeah, I think we'll agree on this one. Montreal is my favorite city in North America. Vancouver, great team to watch, fun team to watch. And Montreal, obviously, their history of winning and just playing, knowing how to win tournaments and playing tournament soccer. I mean, they came back in that game and scored, in the, I believe it was the 85th and 86th minute, being down 2-0 on the road. So, yeah, it's definitely more of an appealing matchup to me. Location, atmosphere, players, everything. Chester, PA. Philadelphia Union. It's not 7-hour drive for me, so that's nice. But yeah, no, I'd rather
that game lacks flavor. That game lacks flavor.
Yeah.
Okay, last question, and I think this one's a bit of a surprise for many. Actually, better yet, can Seattle avoid the play-in game at this point in the season?
Can Seattle avoid the playoffs is probably the better question.
Well, can they make the playoffs?
They're
in the last seat right now, right?
They're in the 6th place right now. They have 24 games played. They have 1.33 points per game, which is actually 7th. They're actually behind Houston. Houston's ahead. Houston's behind by 1 point, but Houston has the better goals, points per game. They look bad. They've lost 8 out of 9 games ever since the Open Cup meltdown by Dempsey. Ever since the Obafemi Martin injury, they just don't seem to. It's not. Maybe it's the fact that they were outscoring teams for so long that we ignored it, but their defense is bad. It's just we all expect it to be bad, but it's just it's just awful at this point.
I have a non-soccer comment.
Go ahead.
It's semi-soccer, obviously. This is all bad juju for Dempsey grabbing the referee's book. This is all it is. It's all bad karma. That's. I honestly think when that really. If you plot things out, right? If you plot it out chronologically, that seems to be the tipping point where they just kind of nosedive.
Not Obafemi Martin being injured. The entire time.
Yes. Okay. Yes. Martin's being injured is a big deal, but they were kind of keeping it together for a while there, and then they just lost their heads. I don't know. I didn't see this coming. I did not see this coming, to be honest with you. I thought last year their defensive issues were more along the lines of injury, so that their defense was a little shaky. But I think they had a lot of injuries. I thought this year they're going to be healthier. It'll be better. It seems to have gotten worse. I think Seattle doesn't make the playoffs. Siggy Schmidt gets the can finally.
Well, okay. Well, if that happens, definitely going to occur. And we also forget that Stephen Fry's injured as well, their goalkeeper, who's been playing very well. But yes, they have a ton of injuries. They were a one-trick pony. I said it last year. Ziggy Smith and how great he's been in his career hasn't been able to figure out another plan with this team. They haven't been able to change the game. They haven't been able to kill a team off of possession or counter by bunkering down strong. It's just been run fast, run hard, and interplay between Dempsey's and Martin's, and then you have your ancillary players like Nagel and Barrett and Kenny Cooper last season, and Papa kind of coming off the fringes and scoring goals, late goals, and being helpers. This isn't LA, where there are 2 or 3 great fun players. Was supported by a strong team behind them. The team behind Seattle is not that strong. It's a poor man's version of the LA model, even though they're spending just as much money.
So, 10 more matches, give or take?
Yeah, 10 more matches, all against Western Conference opponents. So let's not forget that they might have one or not all. They might have 1 or 2 Eastern Conference opponents sprinkled in, but the way the schedule works out, essentially you're playing everybody in your conference right now. So it's obviously going to be a lot harder. I mean, they did pick up Roman Torres to kind of help their defense, but I don't, I mean, how long is that going to take? Ridgewell coming in late in the season last year for Portland really didn't do much for them. I mean, it did something for Watson for Vancouver, but they just kind of have to figure out what they're doing tactically. It just feels like they're that second gear, that finding that rhythm, finding something else that just has to work. Maybe flowing the game through Papa. Maybe going with the young players. Christian Rodon, putting Christian Rodon in and let him going up the opposite wing as Nagel and create something new. But something has to change right now, or else Ziggy's going to be out of a job.
I still think it's karma. I think Dempsey needs to do something to redeem his equilibrium. He probably needs to get a tattoo that says "I'm sorry" or something like that. That I think then we'll be even. That's where I stand. That's where I stand. I have not been a big fan of Dempsey lately. I just don't like his attitude. It's poor attitude. And that's it. That's where I draw the line in the sand. I'm done. That's it. Tonight's over. Actually, on that note, folks, that's it. That's what we have for this week, for this month. Sorry, not this week. This month for Homegrown. If you like this podcast, please rate and review us on iTunes. Send us an email. Just say, "Hey, I really like you guys." Share the podcast with your friends. That's sharing the podcast would be actually the truest way of saying, "Hey, I like you guys. I'm endorsing you to people that I know, and I'm actually saying, I listen to podcasts, and this is one of the podcasts I listen to." That would really mean a lot to us. It would actually keep us going, to give us the momentum to keep churning out these amazing podcasts every month. I keep saying week. I think there's something in there, Jay. I think we need to go to a weekly podcast.
Are you going to pay for a babysitter?
Yeah, no.
Okay. I think we answered our questions.
Yeah, there we go. But on that note, please visit socceryanks.com. You can find all the podcasts. If you want to reach out to me directly, I am on Twitter at SoccerYankDan, or you can email me socceryankdan@gmail.com. Jay, where can the great folks on the internet find you?
I'm at Listener Red on Twitter, and college soccer season starting up, so njcollegesoccer.com. I'm doing women's college soccer this year. I'm expanding out from just the men's Division 1. I'm doing women's Division 1, and I'm doing a little bit more East Coast focus. So all those East Coast conferences, the MAC, the Big Ten, the Big East, the Atlantic Sun, which NJIT just joined, and now I have to learn that conference. I'm doing them. So you want to learn about college soccer, take the opportunity, jump in. It's good quality. It's good quality. It's not this garbage that everybody wants to pretend it to be, because they just don't watch and they don't understand. So just come on in. Water's fine.
The water's fine. All right, folks. Thank you again for listening. Catch you next month.